Hello, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford, and this is the award-winning TV talk show right here on Ebru Fresh Outlook. The battle between the U.S. government and Apple is over after the feds open up the San Bernardino terrorist phone with the help of a third party. But while the federal government seems to have won this round in their fight against terror, questions about encryption, privacy, and global security still rage on. Let's say hello to our panel of guest experts here at Fresh Outlook. I am joined today by Alain Sanders, political science professor at St. Peter's University, Jonathan Weber, founder of Marathon Studios Incorporated, John Biglin, CEO of Interphase Systems. Joining us live via our DC connection is Zuly Gonzalez, co-founder of and CEO of LightPoint Security. And joining us live via Skype is Tyler Cohen Wood, cybersecurity advisor to Inspired eLearning. Jonathan, I will start with you. Does the federal government on its own, without the help of a third party, have the ability to unlock a smartphone?
So the thing that we have to remember is that the federal government is made up of a lot of different groups. You have the NSA, you have the federal government's FBI, you have local FBI jurisdictions, you have police. And it's very different, the capabilities that they have. The NSA in-house absolutely does have the ability to unlock these phones. They don't share that ability with the FBI. The FBI currently works with a wide variety of private companies to get the technology that's necessary to unlock these phones.
So is one person not telling the other person what's going on or how to do it? Should there be better coordination within the federal government? Because let's say there was something on this terrorist phone that could have prevented the attacks in Brussels. You never know what you'll find.
Absolutely, and that's something that we always see, is that government agencies are always trying to find out how they can work with each other, but they also don't want to spill the beans on the technology that they have. We have to remember that what the NSA has and what it's used for is on a very different scale from what the FBI does and what local police works with.
Alan, where do we draw the line? If it means saving lives, don't we just trample on the rights of private citizens and their Snapchat's accounts and say the heck with it, let's get out there and get those bad guys?
Well, it's a careful balance, and I think part of the problem is that we don't have such a careful balance right now. A lot of the law that is being created regarding what you can open up, what you can spy on, who you can listen on, is done by a very secret court, the FISA court. And that court holds its proceedings in secret, and its decisions, many of its decisions, are secret. And so I think part of the problem is that we don't have a judicial system. We do not have a procedure where many Americans would feel secure that at least the balance is being handled properly. There's no way to know what the FISA court says, and sometimes we find out about it only through leaks, like Mr. Snowden. And that is not a way for a democratic country to run its court system.
John Biglin is the author of this book, Under Attack. It is the holy Bible, if you will, about keeping you, your assets, and your business safe. With privacy concerns as they are, and people wanting, in some cases, stronger encryption and greater firewalls, still hackers are able to penetrate what we've got there already.
Absolutely. The hackers are constantly evolving. They're very sophisticated, and they've got access to some of the most advanced tools out there. And they have people on staff that are extreme technologists, very heavy-duty engineers that are building very, very advanced technologies to get into systems. So it's kind of like a leapfrog effect. Once you start to put in some protection layers, they figure out a way to get past it. They come out with something new, and then the industry has to adapt and then catch those protection layers up.
It's a changing game. Let's turn to Tyler and get her in on this conversation. Tyler, as you listen to our conversation about balancing individual liberty with national security, where do you fall on the issue?
This is a double-edged sword. This is a really difficult problem because on one hand, yes, absolutely, by being able to view the information inside of phones or other types of encryption communications, yes, there is the ability to thwart terrorist attacks. But then, on the other hand, the fear is that businesses, corporations, companies utilize this technology in their daily workforce. They use these phones, and it puts them at risk because if the keys to be able to break these phones falls into the hands of hackers, then we're in trouble.
Okay, point well taken. Let's turn to Zuly Gonzalez, who is joining us live as well. Zuly, it seems like it's a strange conundrum we're in, that any kid living in his mother's basement can hack an Apple account, yet the federal government is flat-footed when it comes to opening up a terrorist's smartphone. So is it easy to break through this encryption, or is it only easy for some, or it's almost confusing as you listen to the conversation unfold?
Yeah, and you know, I think Tyler's dead on. It really depends on which side you sit on, and it depends on what it is that you're trying to hack. There are some things that are incredibly easy to hack. It also depends on who you're trying to attack. So if you're trying to attack a government agency, you can be sure that it's going to be a lot harder to attack them because they're going to have many layers of protection in place. But if you're just trying to get into your grandmother's phone or your grandmother's computer, that's going to be way easier because she probably doesn't even know what antivirus is or how she can protect herself. So it really depends on who is doing the attacking and who you're trying to attack, who is the target there. And a combination of those two things really play into how easy it's going to be to get into that device. The other thing is how much data is stored on that device that you get your hands on. If you get your hands on a government-issued device, then there's going to be a lot more data that's going to be valuable and important, versus if you get into your grandmother's phone, you might just have some, pictures of grandkids and some lower quality stuff, but you may also have things like social security numbers and passwords that lead to bank accounts. So something to keep in mind as well from a consumer perspective is that sometimes we don't think that our data is valuable, but in fact it really is very valuable, and one piece can lead to another piece, which leads to a much bigger piece.
Jonathan, what people do is exploit, or hackers do, is exploit the weaknesses. Wi-Fi hotspots are a hacker's paradise, apparently, because of their vulnerability. Tell me some of the mistakes that people use or make while using their encrypted devices.
Of course. So what people need to realize is that you are only as safe as the weakest link in your personal security. So if you have a phone, you put a passcode on it, you think you're protecting everything, and then you go ahead and you go into Starbucks and you start doing things over unencrypted Wi-Fi, you don't realize how easy it is for anybody who is sitting in that shop with you to be looking at everything that you do. So luckily, companies like Apple, like Microsoft, are working to make their products more secure by default, because they're trying to make sure that when people who don't understand security go out and start doing things online, they're doing it in a safe way. But again, that takes time. So people need to realize, what the risk is. They need to realize that if they're doing things, that are unencrypted, they're connecting to insecure hotspots, that they are putting themselves and their data at risk, and they need to make sure that they're doing things to protect themselves in those cases.
Alan, this is really nothing more than a high-tech filing cabinet. So if the federal government comes to the filing cabinet's maker with a court order and says, open up that cabinet because there is suspected terrorist activity inside it, doesn't a company like Apple or Safeco Safes have a responsibility to comply with that court order?
If it is a court order that's decided in open court with both sides capable of making an argument for and against. The problem is that the FISA court, which handles many of these cases, is a secret court. I do not understand how that it complies with due process.
Right, but the problem is terrorists don't comply with due process. We need this information yesterday. So sometimes liberties do get trampled on in order to do good.
But the problem with that line of reasoning, Logan, is that very often we go around or we short shrift civil liberties, and then when the danger passes, we don't retract back and go back to a more even-handed policy. And so many people are afraid that if we go forward and we allow civil liberties to be trampled on in this context, the correction will not occur later when the threat passes. And so that's what many privacy advocates are concerned about. Perhaps under given circumstances it's okay, but laws do not change that easily, court precedents do not change that easily, and the problem is that when the danger passes, we may go back to a situation where still we're having a police-like state looking into everything that we have. Now, understand, the framers of the Constitution were quite conscious of that. There is an amendment that is not often talked about, and that's an amendment that forbids the quartering of soldiers in people's homes. Why? Because people's homes contain all the information about people's privacy, their personal lives, their ambitions, their faults. The cell phone, in a sense, is your personal home. And if you allow the government to go in there and rummage around just like a soldier might back in colonial days, that is a thought that is very fearful in the minds of many Americans.
On a practical level, John, people often make amateur mistakes and invite the intrusions into their lives.
Absolutely.
They open up emails from people they don't know, they click on suspicious links, and they use the same password on multiple accounts.
Absolutely.
Tell me about some of these pitfalls.
Yeah, those are three of the biggest ones that are out there, and we see it. We do a lot of work with corporations, and we see it every month. We're finding out from customers that they're having people, make these mistakes. And the problem is when someone clicks on a link, they're actually, giving an affirmative that they want something to happen. So either go out to a window or download an app or something, and that starts to invite some of those technologies onto computer systems for some of these users. And if you've got to put protection layers in place to stop their ability to click through on those things, but sometimes they're not always avoidable because they look like simple emails.
And Tyler, let's bring Tyler in on the conversation. These emails and these phishing scams, I've noticed, have getting better and better. It used to be Gmail did a very good job in filtering all of the spam into the spam folder. Lately, I've been finding it in my inbox, and some really look like things I might have subscribed to, and they want to verify an account. Please click here. And you have to fight the urge to do that, correct?
Correct, and there's really two reasons for this. Hackers have moved toward a new method of getting into systems, getting into networks, and that is, instead of breaking in the traditional manner by finding like a SQL injection, they're targeting people, because we are putting things out on social media and we don't think about it. There's something called EXIF data that we can turn on or off on our phone that gives away the exact location of where we took that photograph. We also put so much about ourselves. We create a pattern of life or digital breadcrumbs that are very easy for a hacker to follow and to target. And really, the best way that you can protect yourself is by educating your entire workforce, from the top executives all the way down to the bottom, by teaching them what these types of scams look like and what they look like when they're posting everything to social media.
Zuly, I found it very ironic that the federal government actually turned to, Apple actually turned to the federal government after hacking the iPhone and asked for their help in preventing future similar breaks in encryption. Don't you find that very ironic when Apple wouldn't help the federal government?
Yeah, it really, it's what's in your most interest at the time. And sometimes, based on your current position, you need to get something done, and you need to do whatever you can to get that done. If you were in somebody else's shoes, then your position would be completely different, probably. So Apple CEO, his priority is to his shareholders and to ensure that his business is as successful as it can be. That can be in conflict with the federal government. It can be in conflict with other large technical organizations, and it's his job to do what's best for Apple. If he were a law enforcement agent, I'm sure he would have a completely different look on that.
Jonathan, it seems like people are making a choice whether or not to put delicate and sensitive information on this device. You could just write a letter or make a landline telephone call or walk into the branch of your bank. So it sort of seems to me like it's a trade-off. If you want the convenience of an iPhone or a smartphone, you might actually lose some of your privacy and your security.
So the truth is that we do need to balance that. You know, technology is here, it is not going to be going away. You know, encryption is here and it's not going to be going away, and there is constantly going to be an arms race between government and law enforcement, you know, who, for reasons that, you know, they really do have some solid backing for, say that they need access to this information, and people who say we want the privacy that, you know, people have been enjoying for, you know, the entirety of human history up until now, when anybody can access any information with, you know, the click of a mouse. So what we need to realize is that, you know, this is the future. This is a problem, you know, that is going to continue to face people. And what we need to do is come up with a policy, you know, position on how do we treat privacy, you know, how do we treat privacy given this technology that makes everything so accessible. You know, it's not going to go away.
Jonathan, Alain, John,
sorry.
Tyler, and Zuly, thank you so much for your time. When we come back, $15 an hour. Will it give workers a decent living wage or land them on the unemployment line? More on that after this.